That is extremely important because there's so many countries and people who say, well, we'd like to reduce our nuclear weapons, but how do we verify that other countries have agreed to do what they said they were going to do, reduce their nuclear weapons, and someone's not saving a nuclear weapon to blackmail other countries with? Do you think that that can be accomplished through new treaties or through a tightening of the rule of law, or how can we guarantee, or at least 99.9% of the way guarantee, that there will not be some violation of a treaty and countries will withhold their nuclear technology or will withhold a weapon or two?
Well, this is certainly one of the most difficult aspects of disarmament. You have to do that, of course, as you said, through international agreement. There's no other way, through multilateral agreements. And you have to do that by reinforcing the existing capabilities for verification. You have a number of agencies that deal with that. But the main one, of course, is the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. And they have a system of safeguards, and a number of agreements have been developed by which countries open their facilities to inspectors. I don't know whether you'll have a completely foolproof, a completely 100% certainty that no cheating is going on. But I think you have a reasonable amount of assurance to detect possible violators. But we are not there yet, and these things will have to be developed along the way as you go, and as technologies grow. To give you an example, there is, as you know, a treaty to prevent test explosions, to prohibit test explosions, which was done about 10 or 12 years ago, with a system of verification through seismic monitoring, and also monitoring of residues, nuclear waste that comes out of a test explosion, even if it is an underground explosion. 10, 12 years ago, there were doubts, and perhaps they were grounded, doubts about the efficacy of those systems of verification. Today, it's obvious, it's plain that they work very well because the technology has been improved immensely from 12 years ago. They can detect very small explosions, very small tremors of the earth, seismic natural phenomena, and they can very easily differentiate that from a provoked explosion, that's not natural, and to detect where it comes from, how big it was, and I mean and they can send that data to all the stations, to all countries, so that they can also monitor. So these things are natural. They improve with time, they improve with technology. And I'm sure by the time we get to deeper and deeper reductions in arsenals, and other countries, other nuclear countries joining the effort, and of course the non-nuclear countries also joining the effort by not trying to develop them, I think we will have a pretty sure system of verification.
Exactly. Now, in the opening, I mentioned that there was a two-pronged threat. We were talking about nuclear weapons, but also small arms. And before we run out of time, I do want to talk about that for a moment. Small arms, extremely important. There was a conference, small arms conference, back in 2006, and you had Michael Douglas, who was one of the spokespersons for that. We have a clip of him doing a public service announcement on that small arms conference. So let's go to that, and then we'll come back and talk about this whole small arms issue.
Sure.
While owning guns is a legal right in most countries, the illegal trade in guns feeds conflict, crime, and violence. Every day, 1,000 people are killed by guns throughout the world. The United Nations has a plan of action to help countries better protect their people by keeping illegal guns out of the wrong hands, especially those of children. This is an issue that affects us all. Visit UN.org Small Arms 2006.
Okay, Ambassador Duarte, that highlights the 2006 Small Arms Conference. Let's talk just a moment or two about that. What were some of the recommendations that came out of the Small Arms Conference as to how we could reduce this really it's an affliction in not just one or two communities, but in thousands of communities around the world where you have the illegal flow of small arms. Many children are being killed, teenagers are in gangs. But what were some of the recommendations that came out of the 2006 conference to help deal with that problem?
You're right. Well, more people die of small arms than they do of
nuclear weapons. Exactly.
They are dying right now.
Exactly.
No one is dying of nuclear weapons. They're still there. They are a threat, but no one is dying of them. And especially in developing countries, it is really a very, very important problem. And many governments are very much keen on working on that. We have a number of instruments in the United Nations, developed in the United Nations, by the United Nations, to deal with that. The most important of them is what we call the Program of Action on Small Arms. It is a voluntary instrument by which countries agree to reduce their stockpiles. They agree to exchange information, and they agree, above all, to monitor the improvement and the development of the commitments that are taken there. We had a very successful conference. The Program of Action started in 2001, and we have had biennial conferences to monitor, to see the progress. And we had a very successful conference last year, 2007, 8, very important conference, which laid further principles that have to be followed by the countries. We are also having now a decision by the General Assembly last year to create an open-ended group to see the possibility of arriving at a treaty to discipline the trade in conventional weapons. It's called the Arms Trade Treaty. Right now, they are also discussing what is known as the Register of Small Arms, by which countries voluntarily disclose their stockpiles and their plans on small arms. So these are all instruments developed in the United Nations that try to deal with that problem. It is not easy to do that. I don't know whether it is easier or not than with weapons of mass destruction. But this shows the interest of member states, the importance that they ascribe to that, and how the United Nations has been working over the years to bring more progress in that area.
Well, it's a very important area, and it should be mentioned too that the United Nations is not trying to take the guns away from people who have guns legally or try to undermine the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. It's trying to focus on illegal arms, but we'll have to pick this up at another time because we're out of time. But Ambassador Sergio Duarte, I want to thank you so very much
for
a very interesting and a very informative program.
It was a pleasure.
I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.